of the Harbor Amendment Bill 2024.
The Council resumes the second reading debate on the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung, Chairman of the Bills Committee on the bill, will first address the Council on the committee's report. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung. Thank you, President. In the capacity of the Chairman of the Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025, I will report the salient points of the Bills Committee's discussion. The bill seeks to amend the Stamp Duty Ordinance to widen the value band on which a valorum stamp duty or AVD for property transactions is charged $100 from $3 million to $4 million, so as to address the AVD for conveyance on sale and agreements for sale. In principle, the Bills Committee supports the proposals to adjust the AVD so as to alleviate the burden on buyers of lower-priced flags so as to encourage transaction. Members have observed that since the announcements of the proposal, many members of the public have switched from renting to buying. Developers have aligned themselves with the policy direction and roll out more lower-priced flags into the market. Members consider that the proposal have a positive effect on the overall economy and the property market. Considering the lack of choices for flags valued below $4 million, the Bills Committee has discussed with the administration whether the maximum value of property with $100 AVD can be increased to $5 million so as to enhance the effects to alleviate the financial burden or housing burden of young people and the middle class. Members are of the opinion that despite the more revenue foregone, it will bring about many socio-economic benefits, including revitalizing the property markets and boosting economic activities. According to the administration, taking the raise of the maximum value of properties from $4 million to $5 million as an example, it is estimated that the annual reduction in government revenue will increase substantially from $415 million to about $1 billion, resulting in greater financial implications. On whether and how the AVD will be adjusted again in the future, it is necessary to take into account a number of factors, including the government's then fiscal position, the economic environment, and the property market situation. The Bills Committee urges the government to study the relevant proposal in due course and roll out more measures to help first-time home buyers. Members have inquired about the calculation of the AVD. According to the administration, the AVD rates for value bands subject to marginal relief are calculated by a formula rather than based on a fixed percentage, with a view to providing marginal relief for property transactions with a value bordering the edge of a value band. When the amount of value of consideration increases from one value band to the next higher one, the marginal relief rates can mitigate the increase in duty. Now, the marginal relief rates adopted in the bill will not involve the imposition of additional AVD, while being able to retain the value band on which a 1.5% AVD rate is charged for properties with value of between $4 million and $4.5 million. The Bills Committee was concerned that some buyers may avoid paying a higher AVD by purchasing two adjoining properties with separate deeds and knocking them into a larger unit. According to the administration, the applicable AVD rates for a one-off purchase of two adjoining property units will be calculated on the basis of the total consideration or value, whichever is higher, of the two properties. Also, for the purchase of a residential property and a car parking space under the same agreement, or for the purchases of a residential property and a car parking space under two separate agreements on the same day, where the two purchases form part of a large transaction or a series of transactions, the applicable AVD rates will be calculated on the basis of the total consideration or value. As a result, a buyer cannot avoid paying a higher AVD by purchasing two adjoining properties with separate deeds and knocking them into a larger unit. In response to the Bills Committee's inquiry, the administration has clarified that for subsidized housing subject to alienation restrictions, If the buyer has subsequently paid a premium to lift the alienation restrictions, no additional AVD will be levied on the premium paid for lifting the alienation restrictions. President, the following are my personal views on the bill. In 2016, the FDU has urged the government to extend the applicable scope of the $100 AVD from $2 million to $4 million properties. Now, after so many years, the government has adopted the FDU's proposal and introduced the bill this year. This is a move to help the public, but this is also a product of the times. Now, this is a good step, but we still need to acknowledge the situation in the property market. There is a downward trend of housing price in Hong Kong. However, for household with a median household income, they need 16 to 16.7 years to buy a flat, just 2 years shorter compared with the peak at 2022. Price of Hong Kong's housing is still the most expensive in the world. Now, in the past few years, the median income for young people has only increased by 1.5 times. However, housing prices have quadrupled. Many young people have given up hope to buy their own homes. Now, the stamp duty saved with this bill can help alleviate the financial burden on buyers of lower-priced flats, but this is just a baby step. Now, in my report just now, I mentioned the calculation of the marginal relief. Now, last time when the AVD applicable scope was raised from properties valued at $2 million to $4 million, for those properties valued at between $3.1 to $3.5 million, only a 10% charge was imposed on the excess of the threshold. However, this time, if you are buying a flat valued at $4.1 million, you would need to pay $20,000 in tax. For a flat of higher value, you need to pay $40,000 in duty. Now, this can help the government's fiscal position, but the $20,000 additional AVD will deter many people from buying a flat. So the government should revisit its position promptly. Now, we also need to take guard against speculation of properties. Now, besides avoiding AVD by separate deeds, there is also the risk of speculation in the market for low-priced flats. In the past, most investors would choose to invest in middle-priced flats at a value around $6 million to $8 million. However, since there is a significant drop in the stamp duty for properties valued below $4 million, it may encourage more investors to move away from middle-priced flats and wade into the lower-priced market. Now, the market is very fluid. The bill is tempting for investors. The governments need to keep on top of the situation to avoid the bill being abused. Now, the risk of separating these, as mentioned by the government, purchasing two adjoining properties with separate deeds will not help the buyer avoid paying a higher AVD. Now, about subsidized housing, stamp duty will be calculated based on the post-premium price. I agree with that. Now, in recent years, true, there were some subsidized housing flats for sale valued about $4 million, but there are not a lot. They're mostly located in Kai Tak and Ho Man Tin. Now, after the relaxation of the AVD, most subsidized flex buyers will be benefited. President, the FTU has been concerned about the down payment pressure for the grassroots. Now, I'm pleased to see that this bill has finally come along. I urge the government to come up with other measures to help enrich the housing ladder for first-time home buyer. For example, interest-free loan for down payment and also a lower mortgage. Hopefully, more young people can afford to buy their own homes. We need to address the structural problem of first-time home buyers can't come up with a down payment. Now, I urge the government to design a dedicated supporting plan for young home buyers and first-time home buyers. I hope the government can consider my proposals to address their housing needs. Only then can we make sure that the reduction in stamp duty can help those in need. Thank you so much.
Mr. Kenneth Lau. President, the property market supports the development of the local economy. Hong Kong people are willing to spend savings on acquiring a home so that they can build their own family and retire in their own family. The property market has been on the downside. It affects a lot of people in Hong Kong. Land sale, revenue, and stamp duty will also see a decrease for the government, and this will affect public finance and affect the development of the local economy. This will stifle the development of Hong Kong. After the cancellation of all the spicy measures, the government now introduces the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025 to adjust the AVD chargeable by raising the maximum value of properties chargeable to a stamp duty of $100 from $3 million to $4 million. This is a sweetener to the property market. Take property valued at $4 million. Buyers had to pay an AVD of 1.5%, that is about $60,000. After the passage of the bill, buyers will only have to pay $100. Buyers can spend the money on furniture, home appliances, and so on. According to the Land Registry, this March, first-hand and second-hand property units stood at over 2,200 and 3,300 respectively. A substantial increase from 896 and 2,546. This is a stimulus to the property market, so I speak in support of the bill. I'm a member of the Bills Committee. I took part in the scrutiny of the bill. Members put forward a lot of valuable suggestions on how to stimulate the local property market. Some members suggest raising the amount or value of consideration of the property from $4 million to $5 million. I in principle support this suggestion. However, the government is facing fiscal pressure. If the government is to increase the amount or value of consideration from $4 million to $5 million, this will exert an impact on the public coffers. The government will review the situation and make adjustments to ensure that the policy is in line with the local market. According to the work report of the Central People's Government, we need to stabilize the local economy as well as the property market. This shows that the government attaches much importance to the local property market. Hong Kong is an international financial market. We are the gateway to the world. We need to take bold moves. We need to be resolute. That is a way to restore investors' confidence. That will also boost the healthy development of the local property market. In the coming 3 to 4 years, the potential supply of first-hand and second-hand housing stands at about 105,000. I support the relaxation of home acquisition threshold. This will attract more potential buyers to join the market, so the demand can be absorbed. This will increase the turnover of the local property units. Land sale revenue is one of the streams of government revenue. There's a plunge in land sale revenue, so I advocate the introduction or the resumption of the land application mechanism. Developers should be allowed to pay the land premium by installments. This will enable developers to be more active in supporting the development of the Northern Metropolis. Thank you, President. Professor Chow Man Kong. Thank you, President. I support this bill. It eases the burden of buyers of residential properties at lower values. I've been concerned about the home acquisition issue of the middle class, of the grassroots and the sandwich class. In 2023, G19 suggested extending the period for mortgage from 30 years to 50 years. This would substantially increase the turnover of property units. Units valued at $4 million or so account for a large percent. I believe this suggestion will significantly help the grassroots young people as well as first-time home buyers. We need to acquire our home before we develop. When we acquire our home, this will bolster our confidence in the future development of Hong Kong. The current Trump government listens to the public and meets public aspirations. First of all, for low-price flats valued at $4 million or below, this will stabilize the local property market. In general, for property units valued at $4 million or so, buyers had to pay $60,000, but at present, after the passage of the bill, they will only have to pay $100. This is a significant help to buyers. 35% of interest, 90% of mortgage, buyers will have to pay $16,000 for 30 years. And this amount is about 10% of the income of a young person. This is the most that they can pay. The saving of $60,000 is great help to young people. Market survey shows that the number of transactions of properties valued at $404 million or so accounted for 25%. The number was 953, about 80%. 2024. And we need to seize this opportunity, and it has attracted a lot of first-time home buyers. This policy helps young people to buy their own home, and it also stimulates the local property market. The policy is expected to benefit 15% of all the property transactions in Hong Kong. The government will have revenue foregone by $400 million, but it will stimulate the local property market. Despite the saving of the AVD of $60,000, it doesn't mean these young people don't have any needs. Young people may have to buy home electrical appliances, furniture, and so on, and this will also stimulate the local retail market. And I believe this will offset some of the government revenue foregone as a result of the policy. This is in line with the policies being adopted in mainland China. I have two suggestions. After a period of time following the implementation of the policy, the government should keep the situation in view and extend the scope of property units to those valued at $5 million. This will probably affect public finance, but we can see that the impact is quite limited. $4 million of worth of property, the government will have revenue foregone by $400 million, whereas if the threshold is relaxed to $5 million, the government will see revenue foregone by $1 billion. And I believe this will benefit the government, and the government will save potential expenditure on building public housing units. Earlier on, I floated a proposal to the Secretary for Housing. The mortgage guarantee period will be extended to 60 years if the government has the resolve to solve more problems about young people buying a flat. This will generate positive impacts on insurance, construction, legal, and government tax. I also submit.
Mr. Edmund Wong, President, the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025 seeks to implement the measure raised in the budget this year. That is to extend the value band for property transactions charged at $100 AVD from $3 million to $4 million. So for property value between $3 million and some $4 million and $300,000, there will be a maximum reduction of $60,000 in AVD. Now, since the 1st of April last year and April this year, based on the data, some 10,000 transactions are expected to benefit, accounting for 15% of the total transaction volume. Now, despite the high interest environment and the volatility in the global market, there is a huge downward pressure. Still, there are many young families who would like to buy their own home, but they are heavily burdened. So by increasing the maximum value of property transactions from $3 million to $4 million, we can boost the demand for lower-priced homes. It will help stabilize the property market and boost transaction. Now, according to the Land Registry's record, since the announcement of the measure to extend the applicable scope of $100 APD to $4 million properties, the transaction volume stood at 6,600 and 6,800 in March and April, much higher than some 2,000 transactions in January and 4,000 in February. The prices or the transaction volume has increased from some $30 billion and $40 billion to some $45 billion and $48 billion in March and April. So by extending the applicable scope of the $100 AVD, it helped lessen the tax burden on the buyers as well as stabilize our property market. So when the property markets fully emerged from the plight, the government will have to revisit its position and adjust the applicable scope of the $100 AVD scheme so as to prevent abuse of the system. Also, to help more young families to buy a home, I urge the government to consider providing additional assistance to first-time home buyers who have never bought a flat. There should be additional stamp duty concession for them. So this should be applicable to the white bond secondary market and also the HOS scheme market. This will help us integrate the housing ladder further and provide more upward mobility for young families. I also submit to support the bill. Mr. Benson Look. President, I speak in support of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025. I'm one of the members of the Bills Committee. I was involved in the scrutiny work of the bill. Now, the bill seeks to lessen the tax burden on buyers of lower-priced flats. The value band for the $100 AVD will be expanded from $3 million to $4 million, with a maximum reduction of AVD of $60,000. According to the transaction record last year, it is expected that some 10,600 transactions, or 15% of the total transaction, will be benefited from the measure. Now, by widening the value band, once again, since the removal of the demand-side management measures, this is another sweetening measure for the property market. Now, I'm concerned about young people's housing concern. I was told by many young people that property valued at $4 million or less is really affordable by young couples or young families. So I agree that this proposal has driven demand for home purchase among young people. Now, with more young families becoming homeowners, it will also enhance the sentiments in the property market, and the effect will ripple out. Many people will switch from renting to buying. Now, there is an example we always quote. There is a flat in a housing estate in Kowloon. It costs $3.8 million. Now, based on the previous AVD rate, the buyer will have to pay some $57,000 in AVD. That is an entire month's earning for the young couple, but that would be waived under the current measure. Now, by dialing down the AVD to a nominal level of $100, for 80 to 90% mortgagees, the monthly mortgage payment would be lower than that for renting a home. So this will encourage many more young people to consider buying a home. Now, the proposal will inject vitality into the property market while helping young people and the public to become homeowners. This is a good policy. In fact, after the announcement of the measure, the local property market has indeed been vitalized. Many people have bought a new home and it's driven transaction. According to the record of property agencies, in the second-hand market, there is a 60% increase in transaction. property value below $4 million accounted for 45% of the total transaction. Now, many developers have aligned themselves with the policy direction and rolled out more low-priced flags to the market. So despite the $400 million in revenue foregone, the measure can give a much-needed injection to the property market, and society will end up benefited. Now, whenever possible, when the government's fiscal position allows and when the market is healthy, the government can consider extending the $100 AVD value band to property valued as $5 million or even $6 million. These are also the affordable range for young families. It will help more potential home buyers to realize their dream, and it will be another injection of boost of confidence to the market.
Mr. Johnny, to ease the burden of buyers of properties at lower values, the budget has announced that the maximum value of properties for which $100 stamp duty will be charged will increase from $3 million to $4 million, and that 10,600 transactions per annum are expected to benefit from the new measure, and that's 15% of the total transactions. I support this measure. This will help ease the burden of young people and buyers of properties at lower values. It will also help improve the circulation of properties of lower value. This will bring a stimulus to the market. Now, in fact, right after the announcement of this proposal, many members of the public have gone from renting a property to buying one, and that means we can improve the housing ladder and help instill in people a sense of bliss. In fact, developers likewise have aligned themselves with the government, and that means they have launched smaller flats for sale. In the long run, this will cause a boom in the property market, and this will also incentivize developers in bidding for new land for development. However, at the moment, in the urban districts, not many properties are worth $4 million or less, so I think the government should consider raising the maximum value for which the $100 stamp duty is charged from $4 million to $5 million. Perhaps so as to further ease the burden of the middle class, especially young home buyers. Well, this will cause government revenue foregone to increase, but there will be other indirect economic benefits, including a boom in the property market. Now, all in all, the cooling off measures were scrapped last year, and this year in the budget, the government proposes new measure to raise the maximum value of properties to $4 million. This will further lower housing acquisition costs. I think this is good news for the public. I hope that the government will keep in view the market trend and further adjust the rate. I so submit. Mr. Tang Fei. President, I speak in support of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025. The measure proposed seeks to ease the burden of first-time home buyers. This will also help the general public, especially young people. This will instill in the public confidence in the housing market in Hong Kong. Property prices have always been in the stratosphere. This has been a problem for prospective home buyers, especially our younger generation. They have limited purchasing power, and they are not eligible for public rental housing. And this is a great challenge for them. Now, apart from the soaring property prices, we also have the transaction costs, such as stamp duty. Stamp duty is a major hurdle for them. The budget is proposed to widen the value band on which the stamp duty for transactions is charged at $100 from $3 million to $4 million, and this is something that is worthy of our support, and this is a measure that can target certain groups of the public in a precise manner so as to help them meet home ownership needs. So it's rather than a broad stroke approach, I think that this measure will yield more effective results. Now, this can help buyers with home ownership needs. And at the same time, when the market is not quite stable, this will bring stimulus to the market. The core of this bill relates to adjustments to the Scale 1 and Scale 2 ADV rates. Now, what is worthy of our attention is that the maximum value of properties for which $100 stamp duty is charged will go up from $3 to $4 million. Meanwhile, for property valued at $4 million to $4.5 million, the rate is relatively low, and that's 1.5%. That means for buyers of properties valued at $4 million or less, they can save a lot in the payment of stamp duty. And I think this is a major supporting measure for them. And it comes with precision because this measure can help the less well-off families, especially young couples. Now, according to the paper, at the moment, for the purchase of property at the $4 million, the stamp duty payment is $60,000, and there will be a substantial decrease to $100. This is a really staggering decrease from some $60,000 to just $20,000. So for a recent graduate earning just a meager income, this will be very beneficial for them. Now, for property valued at about $4.5 million, still the buyers will benefit from a reduced stamp duty rate. So for first-time young home buyers and nuclear family couples, etc., this is good news for them. Because of the lower home acquisition costs, who are originally deterred by the high stamp duty rates, they are now given the confidence to buy a property. And this is a major policy rolled out by this time of government to help members of the public. This will also help maintain social stability. As the classic saying goes, we need to have a roof over our head in order to enjoy peace and bliss. So that's the case for young couples as well. They need a roof over their head before they consider raising children. And this can somewhat help boost the birth rate in Hong Kong as well. Apart from home buyers, other people will benefit from this measure. Well, say for the property market in Hong Kong, things fluctuate. I won't say that everything is going south, but at least this measure will help stabilize the market, especially because it will help increase transactions of properties of a lower range value. As other members have explained, many people have now switched from renting a property to buying a property. So with the lower stamp duty rate, you can see an instant result, and that means more transactions. This is a targeted measure that can help stabilize the market, instill confidence in people in the market, especially when there are lots of uncertainties in the geopolitical scene. We need to, people may be deterred from buying a property. And this measure sends a moderate signal, relatively speaking. Now, by moderate, I'm suggesting that when market, in the past, when market was undergoing correction, some drastic measures would be taken. That's the case about a decade ago. Some drastic measures were rolled out, and that caused an over-exuberant market with a lot of speculations. In fact, other members already reminded the government to be vigilant against this situation. This is a moderate and targeted measure, and it can help avoid the market becoming over-exuberant again. I think the increase in transaction in the housing market is acceptable. And we can also help drive activities in other sectors such as real estate agents, bank banking mortgages, professional services, decorations, etc. I think the logic of this measure is sound. It helps the transaction of properties at lower values. It can also help the lower class of our society. This is a measure with precision. Likewise, we should impose other targeted measures. Well, we can also discuss other perspectives, say whether this measure will stimulate the market. At the moment, we don't see excessive speculation of properties of lower value, and we are quite optimistic about the market development. So I hope that the precise measures will not only be rolled out by the Housing Bureau or the Development Bureau, but other policy bureaus within the government as well. They should adopt the same mindset so as to help drive economic development. I think you're repeating yourself a number of times already. You may go on. In short, I support this amendment bill. So submit.
Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025, or the bill for short. The policy raises the maximum value of properties chargeable to a stamp duty of $100 from $3 million to $4 million. In other words, the duty chargeable is $100. And property residential and non-residential property transactions with an amount or value of consideration about $3 million and not exceeding $4.32378 million will be reduced. That is 20% of the stamp duty rate plus $100. And this will ease the burden of the buyers of lower price flats. And this will also prevent duty hikes when the value of properties goes a bit above $4 million. This will ease the burden of young people and first-time home buyers. According to the government, between April 2024 and January 2025, the government anticipated every year 10,600 transactions will benefit, accounting for some 15% of the transactions in Hong Kong. I think the policy direction is right. That said, setting the threshold at $4 million will not be sufficient to ease the burden of buyers of residential properties. So on the basis of this amendment bill, I proposed to the government to study two proposals. One, I suggest that the maximum value of properties chargeable to $100 stamp duty should be raised from $3 million to $5 million. The government will have revenue foregone by $400 million if the threshold is set at $4 million. However, if the threshold is raised to $5 million, the government will have revenue foregone by $600 million more. The actual impact on the government is limited. Instead, if we make further adjustments to value bands, this will bring more stamp duty revenue to the government, and this will also stimulate the local property market. I suggest granting tax concessions for first-time home buyers. This will further boost the turnover of low-price flats. And this will also provide upward mobility when it comes to the housing ladder for people in Hong Kong. I think this is viable and it is worth looking into by the government. When it comes to first-time home buyers or for people who haven't yet owned any homes in a certain period of time, The government may allow people to take an oath to declare so. The government may also impose a cap. This will better help the middle class and people who haven't yet owned a home yet. This will stimulate the stable development of the local property market, and this will also improve the livelihood of Hong Kong people. This bill hasn't yet taken on board the views and the proposals I just now mentioned. But I suggest that the administration should keep in view the local property market and make adjustments to the policy on a regular basis. The applicability scope should be reviewed from time to time. The local property market has everything to do with economic activities in Hong Kong as well as its future development. If the local property market continues to be in the doldrums, SME financing and similar sectors will suffer from a knock-on effect. Therefore, suitable tax concessions will help stabilize the local property market and encourage its healthy development. This will also ease the burden of buyers of residential properties. This will enhance the sense of well-being and the sense of happiness for people in Hong Kong. I support the bill. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025. The Financial Secretary announced in the 2025-26 budget that the maximum value of properties chargeable to $100 stamp duty will be raised from $3 million to $4 million. 15% of the transactions every year will benefit. That is about 11,000 properties. This will ease the burden of home buyers of lower price flats, especially for young people. For properties valued at $3 million to $4 million, the number of transactions saw a significant increase from 600 to 1,200. This shows that this policy will help more people to own their own homes. The government will have revenue foregone by $410 million, but in the long term, I believe the benefits will outweigh the revenue foregone. This will also encourage the turnover of local property market, renovation industry, legal sector. This will also benefit from this policy. Owning their own home is many aspirations of young people. Lower price flats are exactly the targets. These young people would have to pay $60,000 before the passage of the bill. They could have spent this amount of money on down payment or other costs. For housing estates in Cheung Kwan Lo, young people would have to pay $58,000. But now, after the passage of the bill, young people only have to pay $100, and that is equivalent to 3 to 4 months of rents. Some members suggest further relaxation when it comes to the threshold, and some members suggest providing more help to first-time home buyers. According to statistics, first-time home buyers buy an average of $5.2 million of properties. They are, on average, 38 years old. Home ownership is not just personal aspiration, but it will also have a bearing on whether young people can have their own family and have their own children. This has to do with the long-term development of Hong Kong as well as the local demographics. In light of the demand of young people, the government should review the situation and consider making adjustments to the value bands. We should also look into different proposals in order to allow young people to own their own homes through different methods. This bill helps young people to over different hurdles, say those in education, employment, and home ownership, and so on. I also submit I support the bill.
Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I now call upon the Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury to reply. The debate will then come to a close. President, I thank Chair of the Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, and 10 members of the committee for examining the bill. I also thank the 9 members who have spoken in support of the bill just now. The bill seeks to implement the proposal announced by the Financial Secretary in this year's budget, raising the maximum value of properties for which $100 stamp duty is charged from $3 million to $4 million in order to ease the burden of buyers of properties at lower values. Based on the 2024-25 profile of property transaction, we estimate that about 11,000 transactions, or 15% of the total, will benefit from it. The annual revenue foregone is about $400 million. To allow home buyers enjoy the concession as early as possible, the bill came into full force for 4 months, starting from 11 a.m. on the 26th of February this year under the Public Revenue Protection Stamp Duty Order, gazetted on the same date. It will apply for instruments executed on or after 26th of February. Now, in face of government deficit, we believe that we have struck a balance between easing the burden of home buyers and benefiting and maintaining fiscal balance. We will keep in view the economic situation and the housing market in order to draw up the suitable fiscal policies. I want to emphasize that this change will not cause taxpayers to pay more for property with value over $4 million, that's $4.1 million. Under the existing rate, a buyer will need to pay $61,500. But according to the proposed stamp duty rates, there will be a 67% reduction, and that means only $20,100. I urge members to support the bill to ease the burden of home buyers. I so submit. I now put a question to you that the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2025 be read the second time. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Stamp Duty Amendment Bill. This council now becomes